Today what I want to do is I want to take a look at one of the most important pieces of commercial equipment you're going to have in your kit. That is going to be a slider. And we're all going to have gimbals, and gimbals you can get away with a lot. But when it comes down to it, if you have a client that's paying you money and they want their product, their food, it could be perfume, it could be anything. If they want it to look at its absolute best, you're going to need the precision that a slider gets you and not have the little jitteries and fourth axis things that you just are impossible to get rid of in a gimbal. And that's where these kind of tools come in. Now that being said, there is a lot of variants in sliders out there. So it gets kind of overwhelming to figure out what is the one slider you're gonna get. Because let's be honest, you're only gonna want one slider. It's a specialized tool. You're not gonna use it for everything, but when you need it, you absolutely need it. And today what I want to do is I want to take a look at this one right here. This is a really awesome slider that I've come across. This is a Zeapon Micro 4 slider. Now, full disclosure, Zeapon did send me this to review. I'm not being paid by this. They don't get to review it in any way, shape, or form. They just sent it to me wanting to get my opinions on it. And I think this thing packs a lot of punches, both as a manual slider, but more importantly, it has a heck of a lot of options if you want to automate it. Now, the first thing to look at this thing is obviously a very, very compact slider, which means it's easy to travel with. But this thing actually has a very, very interesting trick up its sleeve. Now, one thing Zeapon does do is they give you the sliders in different lengths. They do have what they call a double distance slider. So this right here is the M700. And why they call it the M700? Because it has 770 millimeters or just over 30 inches of movable space. It's almost a 3-foot slider. But check how they do it. They have a design that cleverly allows it to get an extra foot of space. So if you look here, the thing will come and extend based off this central design. And it is extremely smooth doing that. And so what that means is that you can really have essentially an almost 2.5-foot slider, near 3 feet slider, and it takes up only about 18 inches of space. So this really is a super, super cool design. It just makes it so much easier when you're on a trip, or even if you have a limited amount of table space. And what's nice here is you'll see it's got these kind of nice folding feet that come out. So you can fold those feet out in any configuration you want. And once you fold those out, I mean, this thing gives it a really, really nice stable surface area right here on a tabletop. And they kind of made this like, you know, the race cars that have, you know, their wheels kind of angled at an angle. So if you look, this thing actually has an angled slider rail system. And what that does, that angle adds additional support and stability in the slide, getting it as smooth as possible. The one thing you don't want to have in a slider is going to be anything that has any kind of micro jitters. Now, there is one other huge additional benefit to having a slider design like this that does essentially double in length from a central access point. And that is, this allows you to get almost a 3-foot slider and allows you to do it on one tripod. And that is going to be one of the key things to realistically being able to move this around a studio fast and if you're out on set. And one cool thing about this that I found absolutely amazing is the fact that they do this by including these really, really fantastic support arms that come in the Zeapon kit. Now, these are very, very well constructed arms. By far the best tripod support arms I've ever come across. And just to think they're just an addition on this, man, this thing is awesome. You can see you can basically hook these here on the arm of any kind of tripod. And then what happens, if you look at the bottom of the Zeapon, they have support points here on this side and this side, and you can basically lock that in there. And as you can see, when this thing moves, it doesn't affect these points at all. So you can see I can move that, and these points are going to stay anchored onto your slider. So what that does, it gives you a chance to have a single tripod, but you can now have 3 points of contact on your slider. And what's nice is when you get to the end of that slider, that extra point of contact is going to avoid that dreaded dip you'll sometimes get there, because this thing can get heavy when you start putting a camera and heads and everything else like that. So you need to have that support when you go and push out to the edge of the slider. If you look here, all of this comes in like this little case right here, and so you can pack it super easy. And if I open it up, I mean, this thing's pretty small and compact as is, but you can see here, you can easily get the slider and you can get the arms here all in one case, and they give you a little helpful layout in case you put it in there and forgot how to do it, and put it all in there and zip it away. So you have, you know, in a case this big, you can get a really, really professional, fast, single tripod slider system. So that's a really nice component of this system. And if you look here, there are some cool features here. The first is it's got this kind of dampening rod here at the top, and you can sit there and you can push this in either way. But if you want to have even more resistance, you can dial this up, and this will just give you a more, you know, bring the tension and just really, really force the smoothness up as you go. And that'll give you that nice, super smooth. And what's nice is a dial, so you can kind of dial that resistance to get it exactly how you want for a manual slider. I thought that was a really, really nice touch. And on the end here, I'm gonna put this back at 1. On the end here, there is a lock as well if you just wanna lock that slider in between the use. So really simple, basic design for the manual. And then if you look on the bottom, there is mounting points in the center point where I can take things like a tripod plate and put a tripod plate on here, and that's gonna allow me to very, very quickly fast jump this thing on a tripod without having to screw things on. The mounting point here is a 3/8 screw, but you can push it down, and if you push it down, it turns into a 1/4. So you have 2 different mounting options there. Now, but now what I think really sets this slider apart is not the manual options, which are nice. It's going to be the automated aspects of this, because this thing really is designed for automated mechanical motion. And that's where this thing has some really cool tricks up its sleeves that's worth looking at. Now, the first one you can look at here is this basic Zeapon motor, but you can add up to 3 separate motor systems on this called the PONS system. We're gonna take a look at that in a minute. Now, as you can see, this is the motor, and this right here comes in, once again, a nice little carrying case, just like this. So, you know, between this and this, you've got essentially a fully professional mechanized slider system, which I found to be really useful. But what I like about this is they've really well thought this out in the fact that I can go from a mechanical to an automated slider. I don't have to use any tools. This whole system comes together without tools. So it's a toolless system. And if you look here, they've got kind of like an RE rosette here on the top, and there's a connecting point right here on the motor, and I can just slip this right in, and if you look, there's like 2 little like things that I can just screw right on, and then basically now that is on there. I mean, that thing is not coming off. It's completely locked on there, absolutely no give. Took just a few seconds to do, and as you can see, no tools needed. Now, the other aspect about this that is nice is that this thing is powered off a Sony MPF battery-based system. Now, you can do a USB input if you want, if you're somewhere like in a studio where you're gonna be running all day, and plug it into USB output. But I just found using this with Sony MPF batteries is just so much more useful and simple, and it gives you the flexibility to move this around without having to worry about stuff being plugged in. And as you can see, there's basically a Sony MPF outlet right here. I can put that on, and I'm basically good to go. All right, and once we get this motor set up, you're gonna see 2 things about this motor that are very, very obvious and appreciated right from the front. And the first is it's got a full color touchscreen display and control panel here, and it's actually got physical buttons to help you with control. Both of those things are important for ease of use and just simplicity. I love having manual controls even with all the touchscreen. And one thing I really love here, if you look here, it has got a speed dial. So I can go from 100 all the way down to 1%. And in normal mode on this, if I hit that speed, you're gonna see it's very, very quiet and basically can't really hear it. And now this is 100% at this speed, and I can dial it either in, and then if I want to, I can dial this down all the way to 1%, which is going to take like a half hour to go. Just to show you just how slow this is, I think I'm gonna put this at like 5% right here. Put it at 5%. That's how slow 5% is. So it is very, very slow. Gives you a lot of control and precision there. And what I like to do is I tend to find for interviews and stuff like that, I might put it to like 38, 40%. And that'll just give me, it's a slower kind of vibe, gives me about a 30-second bounce there in between, 30-second per arc. And I find that's really good for interviews and that kind of time. That's the kind of speed that's really nice. You can see just how absolutely smooth it is and how quiet it is. My microphone right here is less than a foot away from this motor. You can't really hear it. Now that being said, this is going to be 100% here in the basically normal mode, but if for some reason you need to get a high speed shot and a faster shot, there is a switch right here that you can flip it into high that basically takes the torque and basically makes it up for speed. Now, the key to this is if you do put it in this high mode, the motor will be louder. But as you can see here in 100% mode, it is a much, much faster pop. And it'll just get there and get you a faster thing to get that speed. Now, usually in these situations, you're not going to want to be using sound, just to be aware of, but I've found most of these are for mechanical slow motion shots, and sound is not really ever going to be an issue anyway. And what's nice, if you want to go back to normal mode, you don't have to switch out the motor, you just have to switch back to normal mode, and you're back in normal mode. The other nice thing about these button controls is they do have a manual override switch, which is really, really unique in systems that have motors. Usually when you have a motor on a slider, you've lost all ability to do manual moves on a slider. What I like about this, I can hold down this little hand button here, and then I basically get manual control back here on my slider, and I can do a manual move. This is really, really nice. Sometimes you just want to get a manual move. Other times, sometimes you just want to get the slider set really fast. You don't want to hit a button and wait for it. You just want to move it into position and do it. Lets you have that manual override, and then when you go back, you just hold down the manual button, and boom, now you're back in full automated mode. But speaking of automated mode, these things are really designed for A/B and waypoints. Let's talk about that because that is super easy to do. Now, I'm going to do like a pretty short point right here, but let's say I want this to be my start point. All I have to do is sit down and touch and hit the A button, and you will see the A turns purple. And then if I want to go to my B point, I'm going to come here now to my B point. Let's come on over here. And let's say we'll make that our B point. I just hold down the B, and boom, there you go. Now I have an A and B point. And if I hit play, you will see this. It's going to go back to the point, and it's going to go ahead and give me that control. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about where it stops because I've already set that. So I can set this all up at once and I'm good to go. The other aspect of this that's really nice is it does have a speed indicator of how long that A and B point is going to take you in your slide. This is absolutely critical if you're using this for commercial work, which if you're using an automated slider, you're going to be using it for commercial work largely for that. So for instance, if I have a shot that I know I want to get a product shot that's going to last me, I need it to be 6 or 7 seconds in the commercial, I'll know here that that shot is exactly that length of time. I don't have to guess it. And if you look here, like right now it's 100%, it takes 8 seconds at 100%. But if I dial it down to say, 1%, it takes 10 minutes and 40 seconds. I can get this to a nice 10-second shot if I put it at 65%. So I have a lot of flexibility on there. The other good thing about this is you'll see right now it's got those arrows pointing me that I'm just going from my A to B point. But if I want to have this in a continuous loop, which is something I really want, especially for interviews, I just hit that button and boom. Now all of a sudden you see I am now in a continuous loop. And now when I hit play, what you're going to see is this thing's going to go and do this thing in a continuous loop pretty much non-stop. And what I really like about this, as it does in the continuous loop, look at this. You're going to see it ramp down and then it ramps back up here into that loop. This is really, really important, having that ramp up and that ramp down, because if you're doing these for like interviews, you don't want to have like a jarring stop to the thing when it comes to a point. Because if you cut to this camera, you want it to smoothly come in and smoothly come out. So having this kind of ramp in and ramp down is what I would consider absolutely essential, using this as a realistic interview. And even if you're doing product stuff and coming back and forth, it's just nice to have that aspect so you have that precision control. And then when you get there, if you want to come out, all you'd have to do is hit the menu button, and now what you can do is you can sit there and come in and delete your A and B point, and you can sit okay, and now you're back to go and do whatever you want on there. In addition to setting these A and B points, you actually have a ton of things where you can actually do time lapse. The time lapse functions on these are very, very powerful. With either a trigger and other things like that. You can actually have follow focus, and you can add the PONS heads on here too, which is the next thing I want to look at, because these things are Awesome. All right, and this here is the first part of the PONS head system. And what's nice, this is just basically a motorized head, but you're gonna notice a couple things right out. This, once again, can be powered with a Sony MP battery, which makes it incredibly versatile. You can actually just put this on a tripod if you just want a panning head on a tripod, which I really like. And it's a pretty simple, intuitive design. It's got a power button, which lets you cut it on and then control the speed of the motor, and then you can have a left and right pan button, which lets you know what's going on. Now, remember I told you this is a toolless system, so I'm gonna take this right here and just put this right on, and boom, I'm gonna screw it on, and now I am on, no tools needed. This has another 1/4 inch and 3/8 pop-up right there, but now as you can see, I can sit there and pan this left and right and do whatever I want. Now, if I wanted to just do this as a pan and tilt and have the slide left to right, I could get away with that. But because this PONS system is modular, you can add a tilt function on there as well. So basically, you just kind of come in here. I'm gonna slip this in here, this arm, toolless, as you can see. I pop that on there, and now what I can do, I'm gonna put this on there, and now I can just slide this right in here, doing the same thing, and now I have a pan head as well. So I have a full system. I'm gonna take my battery, put it on there, I will power up now, and this thing operates the exact same way. It's got the same, basically these two heads are essentially identical. Now, one note about this little head here is I am a Manfrotto guy, so I put a Manfrotto quick release plate on there, but it does have a pretty basic, simple head on here that you can go and pop right off. And if you look here, it's magnetic. And so this is a kind of a quick release head that comes here on the Matic. I'm gonna go ahead and dial this up just so you can see that. And as you can see, it's got a slider here, and this is magnetic. So all I gotta do is slide this quick release on there, and it's magnetic, it pops right in, and I know I'm good to go, and boom, it's on there, ready to rock and roll. And then once I have this, I can slip this right on, and as you see, because I have a Manfrotto 501, I can click that on there, and I'm ready to go. Now what's really cool about these PONS heads is they do have Bluetooth built into them, so they are going to wirelessly communicate here with this main motor system, which is a really useful device, because if I come in the menu, you're gonna see it's got an add device function. I can do that. It's gonna see a PONS head, and I can click on that, and I've hooked these up before, and you're gonna see now that this thing is already hooked up wirelessly. If for some reason I don't, I can hit that little green button there. There'll be a gray button, and it's gonna hook up and be good to go. Now, because I have that now, because I have a pan and focus and a tilt head, I can go ahead now and dial this here using my AB system. So let's say I wanna start right here as my point. Maybe I'm panned right, and then I'm gonna maybe, let's start tilted up just for the heck of it. That's my point. I can hit that as my A point, and you're gonna see it goes on an A point, and then we're gonna come over here now, and maybe I wanna come right here. And then what I do once I'm there, I can set that as my B point. And once again, you're gonna see the speed, everything else like that as well. And I know I'm gonna sit there, maybe I'll put this on a continuous loop because I wanna do that. If I hit play, now what you're gonna see is you're gonna see now the head doing the pan, you're gonna see doing the tilt and giving me exactly what I want. I really love using this 3-head system, especially for like outside and environmental type thing. It's kind of that Terrence Malick type look where you can really go, if you want to dial this in to do like a super slow, dreamy thing, this will let you do that. Now, in addition to having this manual, this thing actually does have Bluetooth, like I said, which means you can control it via an app. So you have a Zeapon app right here, and as you can, I can come in here, I can select what I want to do. I'm going to connect to both my PONS head and my slider. You can see I can do that very quick. It locks right up, and now I'm basically good to go. So I can hit done, and now what it's going to do is it's going to bring me in a menu, and now you can sit there and see I can control my stuff right here from where I am. I can control my speed, so let's put it at 100% so you can see. So as you can see, just from this right here, I can control my left and right, and it does have this pan, and it has the tilt options all right here in one aspect. So I can really have complete control and not even be anywhere near my thing in any way, shape, or form. So it's a really cool facet to have that there here on the thing. Now, the other aspect about this is you can use the app itself to go ahead and hit your waypoint. So I'm gonna go ahead, I've got kind of a crazy waypoint right here. So let's go ahead, I'm gonna make that my A point, and then maybe I'm gonna slide over here. We'll make this a B point. And you can do up to 6 waypoints in the app versus 2 that you have here in the motor. But I will say there is a catch to this in the fact that while you can do up to 6 waypoints, they don't go smoothly between. So what's going to happen is once you start it, it's going to go ahead and it's going to go to each waypoint smooth and stop. And then as you can see here, it's gonna stop and go to the next one. So while you can do up to 6 waypoints here on the app, you can't do them as one continuous movement. It's gonna go to each one, ramp in, ramp out, and then go to the other. So that does take away a little bit of the practicality of having that many waypoints. Now there is one other aspect of this app that you should be aware of, and that is the fact that if you are going to use the app, it's basically gonna take over this manual control and the touchscreen right here from the thing itself. Hey buddy, how you doing? So if you have this on the app, just be aware you gotta basically get out of the app to come back and get the full control. So that is just something to be aware of. And whenever I do a review of any product, I always like to point out any rooms for improvement just so you know what they are and what it is, and just to help you make the best decision for yourself. Now for this is an extremely solid product, but there are a couple little quirks on it that you probably should be aware of. The first thing is I love the touchscreen, I love the manual controls. I just found the touchscreen, it works, it does exactly what you want. It's not necessarily, sometimes you gotta hit things a couple times to get it going, so just be aware of it. And even when you're setting an A point, you gotta hit it, and then it takes a second for it to come in. So just be aware of, there's a little bit of a lag I discovered in the touchscreen. It still works. Once you get through that, you're okay, but just be aware of it. The other thing I wish would be really nice on that, you can come in here very easily and you set the A and B points here on this touchscreen, but if you want to reset them, you're going to have to come into the menu, come into a sub-menu to delete the A and B point. I understand they do that so you don't accidentally get rid of it, but it would be nice if there was just a faster option to delete the A and B points, because that's something that I find myself doing all day long on a commercial shoot. And then really, the last thing I would just point out is I love in the app how you can have up to 6 different waypoints. It would be great if there was a firmware update that they could come where you could seamlessly go between them instead of having it just be a 1-to-1-to-1-to-1 type point, and that's really it. But anyway, guys, that is essentially the Zeapon Micro 4 slider here. This is a really, really powerhouse slider. I have to say, getting a chance to play with this and go through everything it can do, I have not come across. This is probably the most efficient and compact slider I have personally come across of any automated slider over the Rhinos, over anything else I've ever worked with. And this is something that is definitely going to be in my kit, and I know I'm going to be using this with lots of commercial clients in the future. Maybe it's something that you could use for yourself. Anyway, guys, I'd love to hear what you have to say with this. Leave me notes and comments down below, and yeah, go out there, keep on shooting, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon.